From the 39-year history of the Black Management Forum to the weekend's National General Council of the ruling African National Congress, transformation of the economy in corporate South Africa still proving elusive. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. I'm joined by the former president of the BMF, the current chairman of Shell South Africa, Bonang Mohale, to talk about his tenure, the role of transformation, and organisations like the BMF. Are they losing their clout? It's a good place to start, Bonang Mohale. Has the BMF lost its relevance? Has it lost its clout?
Bruce, thank you so much for having me. I think the BMF is needed now more than ever before, especially if you look at the three reports that we have just looked at in the last 3 months. So the first is the Jacama report that shows that black CEOs of the top 40 listed entities have declined from 15 to 10%. The other one is our own 3-year study, the Transformation Barometer, that looked at 3 things. And it says that, in fact, transformation, if anything, is going backwards. And then the annual Employment Equity Commission's report that put our representations in positions of leadership at about 14.9% in 2010. And yet 2014, it has declined to 13.6%. So you can see that we need organizations like this more than ever before, maybe for 2 reasons. One is because there are only 2 reasons why the BMF was founded 39 years ago. The first is the development of managerial leadership, primarily amongst black people, but not exclusively, to render us internationally competitive. The second is about socio-economic transformation. Because it's not that these blacks and these women are lazy, that's why they are not adequately represented in positions of leadership. But the fact that there's been, 107 pieces of legislation that made sure that they are actively excluded from the economic mainstream. Therefore, we need to provide
107 pieces of legislation that ensure that black people are excluded from the economic mainstream.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to explain that.
Let me give you 2 simple ones.
Please.
If you are a shopkeeper in the township, you are only allowed to keep no more than 13 items. And if you kept 14, there used to be health inspectors. They used to come in and count them physically. And if you had 14, they would give you a warning. After 3, they would take your license away. You'll remember Habakuk Shikwane. When he wanted to do was to be the best cane maker he could ever be. But by that time, there was a piece of legislation that said black people are not allowed to have productive businesses in townships. So what did you do? He went to the old Buputatswana, made the best cane furniture in the world, and he sold it back to South Africa. 110% of his customers were in South Africa. And we can make examples like
when you talk about 100 pieces and 7 pieces of legislation, you're talking about historically.
Yes, absolutely.
The last 20 years, though, that legislation has been done away with.
Yes.
The world of work is opened up, and opportunities, theoretically at least, are available to anybody who applies, qualifies, makes it through a selection process. Now, what you're suggesting is that black people, black professionals, are not qualifying, are not making it through the selection processes in a sustained way. In fact, are going backwards. What is the reason for that?
In fact, to the contrary. So the first is to accept that we're not dealing with 48 years of institutionalized apartheid, but 350 years of colonialism. So you can't expect to have reversed the trend of 350 years of colonialism just in 21 years. So that's the first.
But we were making progress. There was progress. We're regressing from the progress that was made. That's what interests me.
Which, for me, demonstrates beyond any shadow of doubt that we are dealing here with people who have really not been touched through their hearts and minds. Logically, it makes sense. You have intellectual commitment, and then people go out and they really don't do it. And I think the minute we start having conversations like, but here we are completing the unfinished business of nation building. Here we are giving effect to the South Africa of Rolihlahla, Nelson Mandela's dreams to be the greatest nation in the world. Here we are involved with economic growth, because it's only when the economy is growing that you can start speaking about the redistribution of wealth, not redistribution of poverty. Therefore, you don't give yourself a great chance when you say, but I want to be internationally competitive, yet I leave 54% of the population at home because it happens to be female, 90% just because it happens to be black.
But you look at every single indicator that is coming out in terms of consumer confidence, business confidence, PMI, all of these key indicators of what's happening in the real economy are negative and declining all the time. Now, that's either real or it's fictional because there is this trust deficit. Now, I asked you earlier whether it was as a result of not really having real structural change in the economy or whether or not there was a factor of, I don't know, ill will or bad will in the corporate sector. You implied there was some of both. Take me through the lack of desire for transformation in the South African boardroom or in the corporate sector generally.
So the first is what the Transformation Barometer found out, that there's malicious compliance. I don't believe in this thing, but I'm a South African. I have a business here. I'll do absolutely the bare minimum. So there's a piece around that. The second is just human nature. How do you get techies excited about Christmas? Until and unless you can answer the me factor and the fear factor. And the way we deal with it in some of the companies who have a direct role is to say, to an extent that you are successful in counseling, coaching, holding by the hand your 8 subordinates, and you are the supervisor, and you do a bloody great job, will make you the manager. And when you can find your own successor, will make you a manager of the business unit. And you can see how you can progress to be the CEO of the entire enterprise. So there must be some incentives. Of course, there must also be some big knobkiris, not just sticks. And that's what legislation is there for. But also in companies, we include it in your own GPAs or KPIs, a minimum of 20 percentage points, so that if you don't reach transformation objectives, it hits you where it matters the most, in your back pocket. Because transformation is not something that you do when you've got nothing else to talk about.
But all of this has been in place for a long time.
Yes.
Yet we're not seeing the progress. We're seeing a regression post-2010.
Because we're also having wrong conversations. For instance, when a wonderful good friend of mine, an amazing good quality human being, Sizwe Ngasana, stepped off the first rand board, the conversation was, but we couldn't find another Sizwe Ngasana. There wasn't another black person who's ready. Of course, that's nonsense. One, because there's 55 million South Africans, 90% of them are black. The transformation conversation says the candidate for transformation is not Bonang Mohale, it's not Sizwe Ngasana, it's not Sakima Kozoma, it's not any African or any woman. It is the company itself. It's about creating a conducive environment. It's about working on the culture so that it sees people that are different, women and black people, to come in and make a contribution, come in with a fresh perspective, and be given a chance to thrive and bear fruit in abundance.
First Rand's an interesting example, and traditionally First Rand has grown its talent internally. The succession plans have all come internally. Sizwe was the exception. He was brought in from the outside and fitted very neatly into the corporate structure of First Rand. Do you say that Sizwe failed in his role as chief executive to ensure that there was a succession pipeline of potential black CEOs to replace him, that they went to Johan Burger, the chief operating officer, deputy CEO, and appointed him?
So leadership, not management 101, says as soon as you get into a position, and you know that in today's context, environment, and pressures, you'll probably be in that job for about, say, an average of 5 years. The first thing that you do is to start planting seeds for your own successors. We say you are a good leader when you can find your own replacement. So it was Sizwe's job to motivate to his board and to his principals to say, this is where I am. I have another 36 months. These are the 3 people that I've identified. These are the systems and processes I've put in place. This is how much I'm stretching them. This is how I'm monitoring, evaluating them. And this is how I'm going to ensure that I leave one that looks like myself.
What about, at the end of that process, the best candidate happens to be a guy called Johan Burger? The best candidate,
that's why
regardless of race.
Yeah, but you see, best is always relative. Like meritocracy is always relative. If you come from the same private schools that I come from, and you share a similar background from me, you even smoke the same brand of cigarette, I am likely to see merit more in you than from somebody I've never seen who comes from Nkandla, Mondlo, and Ngutu, because I just don't trust you. So this thing called meritocracy, it's actually a figment of our own imagination, because in leadership terms, you say you are a good leader when you can make ordinary people to achieve the work of extraordinary people. Don't look for Sizwe. First Rand was lucky because it was failure of their own internal pipeline. that Sizwe came from outside, and he came already ready. Remember, this is the guy who started Nkonki, Sizwe, and Sango before there was even any talk of triple BEE. This is the guy who became the CEO of Telkom. But by humbling himself, we did a deal with the Malaysians and the Americans and the consortium, and he enjoyed a COO that was earning 3 times his salary when he had the title. Amazing patience, amazing singularity of purpose, but also just an incredible good quality human being.
He'll come back as chairman.
Deputy chairman.
He'll come back as deputy chairman, and he'll become chairman of the First Rand Group.
And
will it change then?
And the argument that I'm making is that Sizwe is ready to be chairman of South Africa Inc. today. So you don't need to make it a deputy and then the chairman. I mean, this guy has started businesses. He's run some of the biggest. He's run state utilities. He was ready then. So why are you easing him in? That's why you can talk about, but there's no lack of skills, there's lack of talent, etc. And the argument I'm making is that none of us were born group CEOs and chairman of Shells. Somebody took a risk on us, threw us in the deep end, counsel coached and held by the hand, and that's how today, almost 7 years as the chairman of Shell, I feel confident that you can throw anything at me, I'll be able to survive.
My producers, I have no earpiece, so I can ignore them. One more question. Who succeeds you at Shell South Africa?
At the moment, we have a pipeline of 6 very capable black people. Because remember, transformation, when you define it, says it's a planned and positive process and strategy that is aimed at transforming the socio-economic environments, which have excluded individuals from previously disadvantaged groups, in order for these individuals to gain access to opportunities, including developmental opportunities, based on their suitability. My job is to make sure they are suitable.
Do you run the GE risk of, you've got 6 highly talented black individuals, any one of whom could take your job? One day you announce that success, and the other 5 go, thanks, Bonang, I'm out of here, and go and run 5 South African, other 5.
That's a wonderful problem to have. I would rather have that problem than to be confronted with 7 years and say, I don't have anybody.
Bonang Mohale, we must leave it there. Former president of the Black Management Forum, current chairman of Shell South Africa, Bonang Mohale. Deep insights this evening into one of the thorniest issues in corporate South Africa right now, and that is a regression when it comes to the transformation of pigmentation in South African boardrooms and at management levels across the board. There'll be more Money Transformers and Money Makers tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.